I have really high hopes for these books. I do not want to give up on romance. Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a library book haul because I've been really trying to save money, and one of the things I spend the most money on are books. I just think that the library is such a wonderful resource. It makes books so accessible to people, and you don't need to have a lot of money. You don't need to buy books in order to read books. I just love everything about the library. It is a place for people of all ages, of all backgrounds to come together for the same love of reading and the pursuit of knowledge. And I have found some really great books. I have so many that I want to show you all today. I definitely went a little overboard with requesting books from the library. I actually had these books on hold, and I thought it would take a little bit of time before they were shipped to my branch, but they were shipped just so quickly that now I have more library books than I know what to do with, and I am trying very hard to get through these books. A lot of these books don't have any holds on them currently, so I can renew them if I need to, which I most likely will. But if I don't get around to reading them, that is okay. I can always return it and borrow it again in the future. I have a lot of books to show you guys today, so let's get into it. The first book is What the River Knows, and this book has been on my TBR, and I believe that there are some elements of Egyptian mythology in here. I love Egyptian mythology, I love Greek mythology, I love everything related to mythology. This book is actually a YA fantasy, and I haven't read YA in a while, but I loved YA when I was younger, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like YA now. So I feel like this is gonna be right up my alley. So this one is pretty high up on my TBR for these library books. The next book I have is Small World, and I've heard really wonderful things about this author. I believe this is his second book, and his debut novel actually won a lot of awards specifically for his beautiful writing. The story is set in London and in Ghana, and it follows the story of Stephen, who loves his family, music, and dancing. I believe it explores relationships, family dynamics, and also themes of love, and I'm really looking forward to getting to this one. It doesn't look too long. I think it's only like 250 pages or so, so this might be a good shorter read for me. The next book I have is Rouge, and I have heard really wonderful things about this author's book, Bunny. I also requested that one from the library, but I'm still waiting for it. So in the meantime, I thought I would read this one instead, and this one had a really interesting premise. So it's kind of like a dark fairy tale, and it follows the story of a young woman who investigates the death of her mother, who was in this beauty cult in LA, and it examines our beauty standards and the lengths that we'll go to preserve our youth and beauty. The next book that I picked up is Happy Place, and I know that this book is extremely popular. I've seen it all over BookTube and BookTok. One of my favorite booktubers, Jack Edwards, actually reviewed this book recently in one of his videos, and he had really good things to say about it, and I trust his opinion. I have not had very much luck with romance lately, and I've never read anything by Emily Henry, but I know that she is really well known for writing really good romances. I also have another romance here. This is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and I think this was the book of the year for book of the month, and I think they're both kind of similar in terms of enemies to lovers tropes, and I really liked Bridgerton. If you guys have seen Bridgerton, I think that show did enemies to lovers so well. When I was a teenager, I read romance almost exclusively, you know, Twilight era, and also I read so many Sarah Dessen novels. If you are familiar with Sarah Dessen, then you probably know how old I am. I really love watching romance. I love rom-coms, but for some reason I just haven't really enjoyed reading romance novels. I know these two books are fan favorites, so I have really high hopes for these books. I do not want to give up on romance, so I'm hoping these will give me all of the feels and that I'll like them. The next book is Parable of the Sower, and my friend actually recommended this book to me and we're in the same book club. So this novel follows the story of Lauren, who is a teenager, and her family, and Lauren has something called hyperempathy where she can feel other people's pain. So the rest of the novel is about how Lauren navigates the world. The next book that I borrowed is Evil Eye, and this book is about a Palestinian American woman who was raised in a really conservative family in Brooklyn. She seemingly has a picture-perfect life. She has a stable career, she lives in the suburbs, and she has 2 young daughters. However, she grows increasingly discontent with how her life is going. This next book is An American Beauty, and this is a historical fiction. It takes place in the 1800s, and I think it's inspired by a true story of a woman who became the richest woman in America, and we love ourselves a financially independent queen, so I'm really looking forward to reading about her. The next book is The Resort, which is a mystery, and this was actually released in February, so pretty new. It follows the story of 2 travelers in Thailand who are on an island when somebody is mysteriously murdered. The next book I got is Sugar Baby, and I think this cover is so beautiful. It kind of reminds me of Euphoria. So if you've ever seen that show on HBO, all of the colors and the makeup style are very reminiscent of Euphoria. I don't know too much about this story, but I do know that it's set in London, and I believe it follows the story of a young woman who is a high-paid sex worker, and the clientele that she works with are billionaires who do some pretty sketchy things. This book is a historical fiction, and it's set in 1800s in Philadelphia, and it follows the story of a young housemaid and an abolitionist who work together to free an enslaved girl, but they run into some dangers along the way. The next book that I borrowed is another YA fantasy. This is The Scarlet Alchemist, and it's about a young woman who practices a form of alchemy where she can bring people back from the dead. She eventually gets invited to the capital where she gets to compete against other alchemists to make her dream of becoming the royal alchemist come true. The next book I borrowed is Babel, and this book is so thick. And this book is written by R.F. Kuang, who wrote Yellowface, and I read that book back in January. It took me some time to get into that book, but once I fully settled into it, I really liked that book, and I really liked her writing as well. I think it's like a dark academia themed book, so I believe it takes place in the 1800s, and this is a historical fantasy, and it follows the story of a young man who is orphaned in China and then moves to London in order to study different languages, and then he joins this mysterious translation society called Babel, and then some things go down. Not really sure what else happens, but I've heard some really great things about this book. The next book I have is Tom Lake, and I think that this cover is so pretty with all of the different flowers on it. It tells the story of Laura, who has 3 young daughters, and she recounts her experiences falling in love with a famous actor. Next we have Chain Gang All-Stars, and this is science fiction, and I haven't been reading science fiction lately, so I'm actually really excited to read this one. And it's about 2 women who are gladiators who have to fight for their life and their freedom. And we have the last book here, which is The Intern, which is a mystery, and it follows the story of a young law student at Harvard, and she gets her dream internship working for a judge. However, her younger brother actually gets arrested. The judge that she's working for is in charge of this case, and then her brother goes missing, so she's left to figure out what happened and uncover the mystery. And there you guys have it. Those were all of the books that I borrowed from the library. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you liked this video, please like, comment, and consider subscribing to my channel. I also made a free reading journal, which is in my description box if you guys want to check that out. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and as always, take care of yourself because you deserve it, and I'll see you in my next video.